Hey everyone, I'm Izzy. Welcome back to Maker's Playground. And today, where's Maggie?
Hey, I'm Maggie. Today we're going to be talking about templates and flush trim router bits.
Not only are we going to be talking about templates and flush trim router bits, we're going to show you some really cool tricks on how to make templates and what router bits to use to get your work done the fastest, the best, and the safest. Safest. Is that a word?
No.
It should be.
We designed a new Adirondack chair, and these are all the templates in front of us that we're going to be using. And this is the chair we're going to make today.
Well, this isn't a build video. This is the chair we're going to cut out the parts all out for today, and then Maggie's going to put it together so we can show this to you at the end of the video. The reason I'm showing you the chair is that we want to show you can cut out all these parts quickly when you're doing builds like this. I made it all curvy for a reason. We're going to show you how you can use a flush trim bit and a template to just head right over to the router and start cutting. No bandsaw, no jigsaw, no pre-cutting, just start cutting. Now we'll show you the bits we use, how we use templates, and all the information in between. I think we should just jump into it. Let me demo what I'm talking about. Okay, so that's what we were talking about. We were able to just cut this out really quickly with a flush trim router bit in our template without having to do any of that pre-trim work, which, you know, maybe you're only saving a little bit of time by doing this, but when you have 5 or 6 chairs and each one of those chairs has 15 to 20 parts, it can save a lot of time. So that's why we wanted to do this video today and kind of show you the ropes when it comes to flush trim router bitting on soft materials. What do you think?
Looks good.
You ready to try one?
Sure.
You want to do another arm?
Sure.
All right. That was your first time using the vacuum plates and doing this type of template routing, right? Mm-hmm. What did you think? Was it scary?
No, it was easy.
Okay. Let's talk about bits. Say that again. Seriously.
I said it's not near as hard as using a 1/2-inch bit on a maple board running around over. It's not as hard.
Here's an example of some flush trim bits. Over here, you're going to see some bits that are straight blade bits, and you're going to see bearings on both the bottom here and on the top. So typically, if you see a bit like this with a bearing on the top, that's a pattern bit is what they call that, or a top mount bearing. So the way you can always tell if it's a top mount or a bottom mount bearing, you have to imagine it in a router with the router being held upright. So this would be the top of the bit and this would be the bottom of the bit. So typically if a bit has the bearing on the bottom, it's a bottom mount flush trim bit or just a flush trim bit. And if it's on the top, it's a top mount or pattern bit. Now, these are great when you're just going long grain, a more affordable option for doing patterning and templating. Over here, you're going to see some fancy bits. These are compression bits. Each one of these bits has a cutter that goes in 2 different directions. So in this case, you have a cutter that is cutting downwards, which is going to give you a nice clean cut on the top edge of the material. And on the bottom, it has an edge that's cutting upward. So the theory behind that is you get a much cleaner cut on both the top and bottom surfaces of the wood. Now, these all work really well in a lot of different scenarios, but these aren't the bits we're going to actually use today. Let's go look at that real quick. The bit we keep in for this is a spiral flush trim. So in this case, the spiral only goes one direction. Now, the reason we like a spiral bit is because that actually cuts the wood more like a riving action rather than going straight across the material. This also does a couple other things for us, especially when we're using patterning. So this spiral, because of the way it cuts, it has a tendency to pull the bit up against the template. Because it's pulling against the template, it makes it much easier to push everything through and hold it nice and tight up against the template. In fact, if you try to pull away from the template when you're moving in a forward motion, you'll find it very difficult because it really wants to hug the template, provided you are always feeding from left to right when you're on an outside cut and right to left when you're on an inside cut. We really like using the 1/4" bit when we're going through all that material. First of all, there's a lot less cutting surface, so there's not as much energy. And with a larger bit like this, there's something that's called potential energy that can store up and cause more violent kickbacks. And all that means is with a 1/4" bit, it's only cutting an 1/8 inch away from dead center of the bit. So even though it's traveling at 12,000 RPM, it's not actually traveling as fast as this 1" bit because the outside tangential edge is a 1/2 inch away from dead center. So it's moving a lot further distance faster than the 1/4" bit is. So there's a lot more energy behind it. And more energy means more violent kickbacks. Not that there isn't a place for this in the shop, because there is when you're hogging out a lot of material and you're pre-trimming your wood. So we really like the 1/4". We use it for 95% of most of what we do here, including on our cutting board vacuum templates. So we just take everything over to, because it's hardwood, we take it over to the bandsaw, and then we cut it within an 1/8 inch of the line, and then we bring it over here to our 1/4" bit, and we trim it out. And the other reason we do that is because our cutting board templates have a lot of tight curves as well.
When using this style of template, we like to use a vacuum pump with 12 CFM or higher. I call it a nipple.
It's an NPT airline connector.
NPT.
Male
Nipple.
connector. It's actually more like a penis. It's a male connector.
Okay.
We use a coupler when the template is wide enough to use a coupler. So there's an 1.5 inch hole in this template that matches up to this. That goes in there and we connect it to that. We do that because it's just a quick way to move from template to template. But when we have a narrow template like this, where there's not enough room to put our connector, we put a NPT male connector right into the template and connect it that way. We have a CNC, so for us it's pretty easy just to design one up real quick, cut it out on the CNC, and put one of our vacuum templates together. Now I'm going to show you how we make our vacuum templates here. Rather, I'll show you how they all get put together with all this stuff on it and why. And then towards the end of the video, don't go away, I will show you how you can make your own vacuum templates at home where you don't need all this fancy stuff. So this is a 3/8 piece of cast acrylic that we cut out on the CNC machine. Now when we CNC it out, we CNC a channel here that's roughly 3/8 of an inch wide and about a 1/4 inch deep, not quite a 1/4 inch deep. Now this is where our air is going to connect right here, and you'll see in here some air lines. Because this is a very narrow piece, it's very narrow and long, we want the air to get all the way down to the ends. So we routed out this little air channel. Now, again, because it's narrow, I don't want to be holding on to this by my hands, so I'm going to put some handles on it. We just use some pieces of 1 1/4 inch UHMW, and those get attached with a 1/4 inch tapered head bolt. Now on the bottom side we have a taper that accepts that, so it'll sit below the surface of the acrylic. I'm just going to add a little bit of caulking to the countersink on the back side of the template because we want to make sure we maintain that airtight seal. Put the bolt through and then fasten it down to our handle. And then it's just a rinse and repeat on the other side. Because this particular template isn't wide enough for our 1.5 inch coupler, I'm just going to go ahead and thread this hole that we've cut on the CNC with an NPT thread for a 1/4 inch male coupling thingamabob. As soon as I find a drill that doesn't have a dead battery. Because we're trying to maintain that airtight seal, I've put a little bit of silicone around the threads of the fitting, and that'll just thread in really nicely right into the bottom there. I want to make sure I don't go down past where those air lines are in the bottom. Now the next thing I need to do is add my seal, or what we use to create the vacuum, and a little bit of non-slip material. On our templates, we use what's called backer rod. This is a closed cell polyfoam that is really inexpensive. We can get 350 feet of it for about 25 bucks, I think it is. And it makes a really nice airtight seal. So this groove in here is designed to accept that. So we literally just push it in all the way around. And one of the things you want to be careful about is not stretching the seal. You want to just kind of push it directly down. And then when we get to the edge here, we pinch it just slightly long, not much, maybe an 1/8 inch or so, and then push it together. And that vacuum will pull those together and create a seal. Now, because this particular piece is a narrow one, we don't do this on wider templates, but because it's a very narrow piece, we want to add some non-slip material to the ends in the center, so when that router bit is pushing up against this, it doesn't want to slip. This is Andy Klein cork rubber. If you're not familiar with it, this is a great product. I'll put a link in the description below. So we'll just cut out some pieces that'll fit in between here. Then we'll add this in 3 positions, here at the end, and at this end, and then usually 1 on each side of our air hole. Obviously, the first thing we do before using it is testing it. So we just connect it to our vacuum pump. And it's holding very well.
Now that we have all the parts laid out and how many pieces we have to cut, then now we're gonna route them out.
Yep. We're gonna go ahead and film some of this. We're gonna put it in fast forward, obviously. Our goal here is to get each part down to where it takes us less than a minute to make, which, when you have a lot of parts to make, is a huge time saver. Do you wanna route some of these?
Yes.
I've had suggestions in the past about putting these on here, creating the vacuum, and have a valve that, you know, shuts off the pump and it, you know, will hopefully keep the vacuum, but that does not happen with wood. And I want to give you guys a quick example of that real quick. Really quick. Here's my seat base. I'm going to just go ahead and put it on the top here. I've got 2 of the seat bases routed out, and I'm going to go ahead and turn on the pump. So wood is porous, and you can pull a vacuum through it. Obviously, the more dense the wood is, the less the vacuum is going to pull. So you can't just turn a valve off. You'll always be able to draw some air through wood. Even some of the really dense woods, you'll still draw a very small amount of air through. So you have to leave your vacuum pump on. So why don't we start putting this together, and then we can show them how we make homemade vacuum templates. Should we do that?
Sure.
Do you want to show them how to make the templates or start putting the chair together?
Put the chair together.
Oh, cop out. I'm going to show you how you can make your own DIY template without all the fancy stuff. Really simple. In this case, we're going to use 1/2 inch. This is Baltic birch plywood. You can use MDF, but you have to treat MDF. MDF is very porous. You'll pull a vacuum right through it. It won't stick super well to a project. So something that's not porous is a better option. In our case, we're using 1/2 inch Baltic birch. Or if you wanted to use MDF, you could, but you'd have to paint it or finish it so the air doesn't move through it. We're not going to get crazy fancy here. I'm just going to cut a 4-inch strip out of this, round over the edges, and then I'll show you what to use to create your vacuum seal. I just drilled a 1.5 inch hole in the center of this because that matches up with our coupler. Maggie, will you grab that coupler for me, please?
Here's your nipple.
We make these. This is the coupler that we use for most of our templates. We do larger couplers for our vacuum templates, but for our small ones, and it matches right up to an 1.5 inch hole. So you can just use an 1.5 inch Forstner bit that goes right in there, and then you can bounce from template to template really quick. Right now, we're just going to use some weather stripping. This is literally just weather stripping that you would get by at a big box store. In this case, we got this online. And we're going to tape that down around the perimeter here. Now, the wider your template gets, the more hold it's going to have. So if you're using that spiral flush trim, that spiral flush trim is going to be pushing up against here. So the narrower the template gets, the less hold it's going to have. It's going to get pushed pretty hard. So if you're going narrow, you want to use some kind of non-slip material. Now this acts as a decent non-slip material, but don't just do the perimeter. Add 3 or 4 pieces along the length of it going the opposite direction, because you want that extra holding power to keep your template from sliding. So in this case, all I'm going to do is peel the back off of this with my giant fingers. They don't make this easy for guys with big hands. And I'm gonna go around the perimeter, staying about 1/8 inch, 1/4 inch in from the side of the template. And when I get to the corners, I want as little joints in here as possible. So I'm gonna try and round that corner. And this is just 1/2 inch wide or 3/8 wide, 1/8 inch thick weather stripping. Weather stripping is made out of a closed cell neoprene foam, so it works really well for keeping air from leaking. And if you're interested, I'll put a link down in the description box where I got this. And then I'm just gonna go ahead and overlap that a little bit. And I'm gonna cut it, I'm not gonna cut it perfectly even, I'm gonna cut it slightly long so I can kind of pull those apart and then push them together. And that's gonna give me the best potential for as leak-free possible seal as we can get. So let's go ahead and take this over to the router table, use our vacuum pump, and see if this works. So I've got the same type of material here that we were cutting out for the Adirondack chair. We're just gonna go ahead and place that on our piece, turn our vacuum on, and router it out. I don't have my dust collection on, so it's gonna be kind of messy. And just like that, we've cut it out. Look at the edge that makes. Light hand sanding and you're good to go.
Hey y'all, thanks for watching the video. We hope you enjoyed it.
We really had a lot of fun with this project, and then showing you guys how you can get a lot more speed out of vacuum templates and flush trim routing without pre-trimming. It's pretty exciting, especially when you're doing builds like Adirondack chairs and soft materials or other products that are similar to this. We're pretty proud of the fact that we just launched over 50 templates on our website, mostly for cutting boards and supporting products. Love to have you check that out. All links in the description box below as always. So Maggie and I have to go and fight over who actually gets to get the chair because we don't have time to build another one. So yeah, wish me luck. We'll see you guys in the next video. It's my chair.